Okay, it's 1 o'clock. Welcome everyone back to the Forrest Solutions monthly webinar. Today we have our esteemed guests that we had on last month. I'm Raphi, Salem, VP of Marketing. We have got Anthony Davies, Ken Bassham, and Mike Raposa. Why don't we go around the horn and introduce ourselves? Ken, then Mike, then Anthony. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Raphi. I appreciate it. Yeah, Ken Bassham. I'm with the company NQ Zebraworks, and been doing legal tech for a couple of decades now, and currently helping firms digitize their documents and route them and get them to the right place. And happy to be here.
Great, Mike, you're up.
Thanks, Ken. Mike Raposa, Vice President of Service Delivery for North America for RRD. Focus primarily on helping legal firms to be more efficient and provide outsourcing services remotely. So we do a lot of work with administrative services, document processing, back office, that sort of thing. Like Ken, been working with law firms for about 20 years or so.
Thanks, Mike. Anthony Davies, I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Forrest Solutions. We provide on-site outsourcing and staffing services for a range of industries, including legal, professional services, banking, corporate, and lots of cultural institutions, museums, and various tourist attractions in Manhattan as well. We run hospitality for the US Open, all the way through to mailrooms for top 100 law firms.
Thank you, everyone. And just for our returning guests and visitors, as well as the new people, just to summarize, when we met about a month ago, we were talking about the challenges that everyone experienced since the pandemic started last year. Mike, you talked all about the challenges. Ken, you said that there were no challenges. That was a joke. It was funny at the time. So we addressed all those challenges, and then we talked about moving forward, what organizations can do to move forward. So why don't we step a little bit backwards, and I would love to hear, how has the last month been? So Ken, why don't you start off, then Mike and Anthony.
Yeah, so the last month, and thanks for that, has been extremely busy, and when you look back, and Anthony and I were talking earlier, but when you look back, I think when this all started and everybody was running from the office, if you will, kind of scrambling, if you will, vendors were almost the last people that they thought of. They were just trying to make sure that all of their end users had the capabilities that they needed, had the information that they needed, and just doing whatever it would take to do that. What we've seen over the last month is that vendors are almost the top priority now. So we're extremely busy talking to firms, both about continuing the remote process and how can we continue to better that experience, so that it's, as we talked about last time, that we can replicate exactly what we have in the office outside of the office. And then now what we're starting to see is some people are saying, hey, that was phase one. Phase two is we've got a lot of projects that we want to do. I think some people call it back scanning, but more on the record side of saying, hey, we've proven the documents can be digital. We've proven that we can disperse them that way, and that people can receive them and they know how to get it and they know what to do with it. Why can't all documents be digital? So we've had firms reaching out to us, just talking a little bit more about that, of how do we take the thousands and thousands of documents that we have and apply the same solution to digitize those and make them available to anyone wherever they are. So that's what's been keeping us busy as of late.
Great. Mike, how has the last month been for you and RR Donnelley?
Yeah, I'd say in the last month, there's been a large focus on the analysis process for administration. Been on a couple of webinars and talked to a number of firms where the adoption of some sort of a workflow tool or just looking, how you can manage that administrative workflow remotely has become top of mind for firms, clearly. So much so that we've expanded our team, the Go Connect team, to work with firms to collaborate with them on what a remote workflow, could look like or should look like, as firms are considering this hybrid workflow in the long term. It's clear that the flexible workforce model is here to stay, but it's also very clear that people are going to come back in the office relatively soon. We hope in the next several months. And when that happens, how are people capturing or maintaining the workflow, that they need to support their attorneys, and definitely technology's top of mind, and that's what our primary focus has been on.
Yeah, I agree with both. I've seen a material increase in the focus of planning to get back to the office since probably since after Christmas. I reckon we've probably responded to 40 or so RFIs and RFPs, mainly from organizations who are strategizing on how to reopen. Many of those organizations, whether they be law firms or corporates, many of those have never outsourced before, or not outsourced for a long time, and they're looking at potentially outsourcing the on-site services as a way to help them reopen their offices in a more flexible way. And the other big thing I think that I've seen probably only in the last week or so is our existing clients actually giving us dates. This is the date that we are reopening this office. We will need X number of people. We intend to have building occupancy of, whatever, 20, 30%, but actually having dates and metrics and plans in place. And some of these dates, by the way, are April. And some of the occupancy is mainly only kind of 10, 20, 30%. One big law firm client recently told us September as well, but they have dates. The point is there are now dates to work back from, and all the things that you have to do leading up to that date, in terms of restaffing and retooling the technology that you need, the new process that you have to put in place to welcome people back. And now we have the dates in place. We're starting to build proper detailed plans with clients to come back.
So let's dig into the details. We're talking about office trends, the new normal, challenges that have just crept up right now versus what we thought a month ago, and then of course priorities for Q1. So I'll repeat that afterwards, but Mike, if you could start us off. So we're talking about trends, challenges, and priorities for Q1.
Yeah, I think the priorities again are, ensuring that, I think the initial crisis, people were worried about getting gear, in people's hands, and making sure that they monitor the cybersecurity aspect of those, and and having that happen. Again, now I think moving towards the I don't want to say the end, or just the reopening part of the pandemic and the vaccination. Again, it's the long-term viability of the solutions that they put in place that people are questioning. I hate to be redundant, but that is really what it is. People are questioning, what is this really going to look like? And this is a critical window of opportunity for firms to assess, are we going back to the way that things were previously, or are we going to make some significant changes to our workflow going forward? And I'm just sensing that from people as I talk to them. I had a conversation with a law firm COO yesterday, and I mean, really the nature of the conversation was just that. It was, I've got this small window of time where I can, do a few things to, either look at my marketing department and my business development department and see how that service is, executed. We were a business that used to be very reliant upon working together with clients, or doing, in-person events and sponsorships and those types of activities. And, we used the last several months to work on our web presence and some of our digital output. But now when we go forward here, are we going to continue to invest in that, or are we going to go back to, sort of that sort of that in-person activity? And you can just see that, the people are trying to grapple with these real decisions that they need to make. And, our job as an outsourced provider is really just to help them, come up with solutions that can either be effective if they're in the office or out of the office. It really doesn't matter. It's just what are your objectives and how can we help you? So really, again, I think decisions are starting to be made more so than services and solutions contemplated previously.
Ken, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing the same thing, which is comforting, right? In a way. I mean, there were, and I don't want to make it so general to say there were two types of firms, but if I had to be that broad, there were a certain group of firms that embraced the remote right away. Like they already had a segment of, or a portion of remote workers anyway, and they embraced it and they ran with it and they made decisions based on what the future looks like remote. I would say that some of our clients weren't willing to make technology decisions until they truly figured out what the future was going to look like. So why go and invest in all of these different technologies to support a remote workforce if we don't really believe that we're going to be remote forever and this is all going to pass and so forth. So I believe the busyness or the urgency that's come about is now they're saying, hey, there is that element that there are going to be remote or a lot longer than what we'd originally thought. So we better go ahead and pull the trigger on some of these different ideas that we've been discussing. And so we're getting the same urgency of, hey, can we do it now? And by now, I mean like yesterday. So planning, albeit it's like, hey, we've talked about this before. How quickly can we move forward? But I mean, I think the trends carry through again. One of the things that's come through is the our clients' expectations. So at first there was a lot of leeway and kind of forgiveness of, hey, we're all out here scrambling, just trying to do this and so forth. There were a lot of past times where, hey, that's back in the office. I'll get it to you tomorrow, those types of things. And so people are having to change the way that they respond to their clients. And there's a higher level of expectation of, hey, we've been working remotely for a year now. Surely you guys have figured this out. Why can't I have the same level of service, whether you're in the office or outside of the office? And I personally believe that's what's driving some of the decisions that they're saying, hey, now our clients have a higher expectation of us to be and have everything available to us regardless of where we are. So we need to put these technologies in place. So that's really been a big focus as recently.
I totally agree. Yeah, totally agree, Ken. It's always driven by our clients. And our clients have decided that you've had enough time now to get all your ducks in a row. We need responses at the same rate and the same speed that we used to receive them when you were all in the office. And I think that's driving lots of small kind of technology projects. Certainly for us, we've seen lots of digitization projects in the record space when there's all the employees are working from home, but all their files are in the basement. You can't just add a few extra days for someone to go and find that file. These files need to be digitized. And we've done several digitization projects for banks and law firms and for corporates, not just because they want to restack their offices and redesign their floor spaces, but just because their clients have returned to previous expectations of how quickly things need to be turned around. And so digitizing things and making things happen like they used to before is already happening. And our clients are trying to manage that while trying to manage the return to the office. And that's the reason why we're now scrambling as vendors to try and help them make it work. And I think as I said before, having the dates that they move back to the office and then start project planning all the things that have to happen between there, whether it be just simple policies and procedures around COVID and vaccinations and things, that's a whole different topic. But whether it be is our office going to be the same size? Are we going to have a more digital approach to information? Are we going to go paperless? And the answer to most of those is, yeah, we have to. Right. But we just announced that we're going back to the office in June. So we now have to do all those projects in 3.5 months. And that's the trend, Raphi. That's what we're seeing. And that's why everybody is really busy creating brand new proposals, brand new solutions to try and help our clients return on the dates that they want to return.
Anthony, you said the funniest thing before in our pre-call. You said that a lot of offices are going back on April 1st. So
yeah, that's probably not the best date to announce that you're heading back to the office.
Right.
I'll add too to something that Anthony had said. I mean, it just feels like there's an urgency. Like I said, I mean, you just, in our business, you're maintaining a service level, service levels for your client. You're trying to look at new opportunities, and you're trying to figure out new ways of doing things. But a lot of ways you're always presenting those ideas and bringing those ideas to the table. But then when firms are ready to sort of take advantage of those opportunities, and that's what I was getting at before. It's just that urgency level is setting in.
Right.
So much so that I'm here today in Phoenix, Arizona, where our remote offices are. Decided that I guess it was time for me to get out the urgency train here, get out of the house, get back in the office, work, get with the teams. We're sort of in the ramp up procedure right now.
Right.
Get back to this, or go toward this sort of new normal that we're about to jump into.
Yeah. Well, we've been back in our office for a few months now, and I probably have one of the longest commutes. I get the train in from Connecticut into Manhattan, and most mornings people ask me how many people are on my carriage this morning. It's not a very scientific study, but for a long time it's been just me getting on at my station. And the last couple of weeks I've been sharing that carriage with increasing number of people, 2 people, I think 4 people this morning. So, it's quadrupled. And honestly, we don't see massive change in Manhattan right now. It's still pretty much a ghost town. But my point is the dates are being announced, and that creates urgency, and which is great. I personally missed coming into the office. I missed traveling. I missed meeting people face to face. So as soon as we start to hear dates from clients, it starts to actually feel real. It starts to feel exciting.
Hey, I'm glad you brought that up, because as you said, Mike, you're in Phoenix. Anthony, you're in Manhattan. Ken, you're in Kansas City. So I'm very curious how all of your clients, I mean, all 3 of you have clients and customers all over the country, if not outside of the country. So, and different governments, as you know, Texas is different from California, is different from New York. Has there been any impact on local government, or I should say state government, on any of your businesses?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll take that. I mean, the easiest way to look at that is to just see, team members' activity, right? So in the Northeast, at first, the activity level was pretty low, last March, April, May, and so forth. And then there was a trend that went to West, and West actually kind of continues to be a little bit more non-active, if you will. And that's not across the board, but just for normal activity levels that you would see. And so I would think that just opening procedures, right? And then in the center of the country where I'm at in Kansas City, it's totally different. It's not business as usual by any means. People are still remote, and there's only percentages back in the office, but they started announcing those dates that Anthony's talking about, previous. And it greatly depends on size of firm as well, right? So if it's a small to mid-size to large, we see a variance across the board. One thing to the earlier point, as well as what we were talking about, is a lot of people were hesitant to change too many technologies inside the office in anticipation of people coming back, of saying, hey, what's changed? They wanted to keep it exactly the same. So on top of all the other challenges they're going to have with people coming back into the office, if everything was different once they got back in, then they've got training challenges on top of that. And then the reverse side has been some firms saying, now's the exact time to do it, right? Because there's no downtime. I can put everything in. We'll worry about training later. We'll do training virtually, but let's do all the infrastructure stuff that we can possibly do while we're not dealing with everybody back. So it has been different across the board. I'd say maybe size of firm has played as much of a role as location of firm, and we're all over the world, so it's definitely been different in the UK. At different points in time, they kind of started to open up and then completely just shut down again, and so it definitely goes hand in hand.
Great.
Yeah, I'd agree. By the way, by far the busiest. I mentioned that we've had maybe 40 odd RFPs, RFIs. It's the Midwest where we've seen the biggest spike in activity, from Chicago all the way down to Midwest South, Indiana, Indianapolis, Nashville. It's busy in the Northeast as well, but I feel like most of that is expected, because the Northeast is really probably the largest center for our client base, but the Midwest has been way more active than anywhere else.
Yeah. So this question came in. Do you think organizations are thinking about how they reproduce what they did in an office at home? Or do you think that there's a true rethinking about how the work is done? Mike?
Yeah, so for my piece of the business that I typically focus on, is more of that administrative support, for attorneys and revenue generators in general. So absolutely a rethinking of it, because now again, whether they get all the way there or they only get part of the way there, I've heard most people that I've had a discussion with say, we've learned that during the course of this pandemic, you do not need support outside of your office, right? And while that sounds like such a basic thing for law firms and professional services firms, it was something that could not be overcome. This concept of, I can get calendaring support or phone support or whatever that may be from a virtual office. That hump had to sort of be overtaken at a certain point. So now it's okay. If we're going to bring people back in, what can we do to make sure that they are performing the highest level tasks possible that are critical to being in the office? And so we advise our clients, it's got to be client facing. It's got to be, either extremely tied to the legal business or professional services business, the core of what you're doing. Anything that is a redundant or administrative task, whether it's judgment dependent or otherwise, it most likely can be done better if it's done in a centralized format, just by the nature of the training that's necessary and just the whole productivity sort of Lean Six Sigma, principles, right? If you can train 5 people to do the tasks for the entire firm and make it more of a centralized function, you're going to get efficiencies, right? So that is where we're seeing, okay, if we create a smaller team on site and then funnel to a pool that's more centralized. Like, people used to do the pooled support, but it was kind of pooled support, and like they just said, okay, well, we'll just support 10 attorneys versus 3, right? And have it that way. Now it's like, all right, we want to support 100 attorneys for these tasks and do it in a centralized fashion.
Yeah, I agree, Mike. I'm seeing in a lot of the RFIs and RFPs we're responding to is clients asking for ideas, innovations around centralizing services and then breaking those services into their component parts. And I think the main reason is they see opportunities for process efficiency, but also it helps support that hybrid workforce. That the admins are not sitting on the floor or outside of your office right now. They're all effectively remote, and the opportunity to centralize that, whether it be on site, off site, or offshore.
Right.
But it's all the same principle. It's about centralizing it, breaking it into its component parts, doing it most effectively, and then being able to offer it as a service, whether you're on site or whether you're at home, and wherever you are.
The standardization of those functions too.
Right.
It's also critical. while it's
Yeah.
efficient from a process standpoint, that's good for cost effectiveness and all that stuff. But making sure that things are being done the same way is much easier if you have a pool of people that are focusing on that one function. And
Yeah.
that started with in the mailrooms and in reprographics and in those functions when you had national accounts and different offices, everything, being done the same. That same concept will now be applied to administrative functions.
So we've got about 5 minutes left. If we could have each of your number one takeaway for the attending people. Number one takeaway, Ken, Mike, and then Anthony, why don't you wrap things up?
Yeah, the number one takeaway, and it kind of ties into that last question a little bit about recreate or rethink. We've the safe answer is just a little bit of both, right? So we've seen people want to recreate all the way to doing cost recovery from people's homes, right? And making a home printer work like an MFD, like to provide that same experience. So that's more of the recreate. And then the rethink is really across the board of how can we do, touching things less, right? But once we're back in the office, so that's kind of that work from anywhere, maybe work from your phone. So, I mean, I think our overall theme is continues to be work from anywhere, which is what carries through, which is we want to replicate the exact same experience that I have in the office wherever I might work. And it doesn't have to be home. It could be anywhere, right? So that's really what we're seeing as the number one thing that people are focusing on.
Yeah, so I would say number one takeaway is the need for change management. So, there's technology out there, there's, service out there, there's all these types of things, but ultimately what's going to be necessary is as things kind of go back a little bit, are there people that are solely focused on getting from point A to point B in terms of, you have a new solution that you want to roll out, or, some type of a hybrid workflow or whatever that is. And it doesn't necessarily have to be consulting expertise that you pay for. It's just, I mean, for me and promote just working with a third party provider for a second, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a lot of advice. You're going to get a lot of ideas, and in a lot of cases, those are free. It's free to have a conversation. It's free to, just have a chat with someone about what they're seeing in the industry and that sort of thing. And, as sort of things go back, everybody's going to be expecting things to be different in the way that we're working. And, a lot of people are going to expect them to be the same. So that whole change management process that kind of works in the middle there is going to be critical.
Yeah, no, I agree. And on top of that, the concept of not knowing the solution, but talking to us vendors about the problem, and we work on the solution together. I think sometimes clients come to us saying, this is what we want to do. You go and execute. And I think what I've seen a lot more in the last couple of months is we have no idea what to do, honestly. And that's where you get the most creativity. And we're prepared to work with the client, and we're prepared to partner with third parties. We're doing a lot of work with the guys on the call today with NQ and RR Donnelley, because we're trying to build whole new solutions. And we're trying to fix problems or solve problems that didn't exist 3, 6, 9 months ago. So it's bring us in at the solution development stage, not at the execution stage. That would be my main takeaway from today.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I just wanted to say that it's been a pleasure having RR Donnelley and NQ Zebraworks join us last month and this month. I'd like everyone to say cheese as I take one final screenshot. And thank you very much. And our upcoming webinar is going to be on diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's coming up on March 9th. So please sign up for that. And then on March 23rd, we're going to have another follow-up webinar where we're going to get into case studies and get into real details about how we're helping organizations return to the office. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful, safe year.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bye.